So being a marketing guy, I am recording this presentation. Are we all cool with that?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, great, great. So I believe that branding is a huge driver of recruitment and a blind spot for a lot of people in the AEC industry. And so I want to make your recruiting easier and better than you ever thought possible. Does that sound good? Very good, very good. We'll continue then. So on August 16th of 2022, I learned the very meaning of time. And that's because I had a son on August 16th. And I don't think anything quite tells you the meaning of time by having a child, because you realize just how scarce it is. It is absolutely a resource that is spent. So I promise to spend your time wisely. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time. So we'll just get right to it. A little background on me. I'm a husband and a father and a business owner in that order. I'm the principal at Flannel Media, marketing and branding agency that I started 7 years ago. And I do it for the impact that I get to have in people's lives, and the business owners' lives and the employees. My wife would say I do it mainly to support my mountain biking habit. I don't think she's entirely incorrect on that account. I got interested in construction back in 2019 when one of my clients came to me and they're like, man, we're starting up this foundation repair business. How do we get the word out? And so I started to help them. Then I began working with Faber Construction, helping them with some of their marketing, and just continued to work with some companies in the construction industry. And really, I got interested because it's such a vital industry, right? You're working on refineries. That's how we power our economy. You're working on roads. That's how we get to where we're going. Building schools. That's where our youth are being educated. Every other industry does a really good job of marketing itself, but from what I'm seeing, the construction industry really doesn't market itself that well. And that's a shame because there's such rich stories there. And so that's really what drew me to it. So we're going to cut out the fluff. We're going to get right to it. I want to give you actionable advice that you can put to action. Back in 2015, my wife and I, we got married. We were 22. I don't know why our parents let us get married, but we did. And we decided to live in a retirement home. And that's because, at 22 years old, we haven't had enough of the rat race, and we decided, it was time to retire. No, but really. The reason we did that is because we were the night managers at this retirement home. And so 3 to 4 nights a week, we were on duty. That meant that we would, pick up Sally if Sally happened to fall down at 3 in the morning, and I'd go up there and hoist her up. And the reason I did that is because my mantra back then was sacrifice now for freedom later. And that really has become the driving force behind what I do. I believe that freedom is a function of the number of options that you have. So if you have no options, then I believe you have no freedom. If you have a lot of options, then I believe you have a lot of freedom. And so that is really why I do what I do. I want to help business owners, people in business, increase the amount of freedom that they have in their lives by increasing the amount of options that they have. So back in 2019, well, I guess back in February of 2020, back when buffets still existed, I want that to be our mentality today. So take what's helpful, leave what is not, and I want you to be able to make informed decisions about your business. So whether or not you apply anything today, I want you to at least know what is happening in the market and be able to make informed decisions around your business and the way that it is positioned. So walk away with, first, an understanding of how your brand drives recruitment. Second, how you can tell stories that attract the right types of people. Third, how you can make recruiting better and easier than you thought possible. And fourth, a step-by-step implementation plan. So I don't just want to inspire you today. Inspiration is just fine, but I want you to actually have a step-by-step plan of how do you actually implement this, right? Theory is kind of useless if we don't actually implement it. When I was talking with Ben Faber, I went to their company picnic back in September, and he was about to go play softball with everybody, and he said, the longer I'm in this business, I realize we're not in the construction business. We are in the people business. Because that's so true. It's about getting the right people in the right seats on the bus, rowing in the same direction. I'm mixing my metaphors. But it's critical to have the right people in the right roles. Has anyone here had any struggles with recruitment or retention? Yes, okay. Okay, thank you, very good. Does anyone care to share just kind of what they're going through right now at their company?
There's nobody available.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not enough skilled workers.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for that. And so these statistics you probably all likely know. 40% of the workforce is going to retire by 2030, 75%, according to the AGC, having trouble hiring. 42.5 is the median age of the average construction worker. And then population growth is pretty much flatlined. So 2% is the replacement rate. We are at 0.2%. So there's just not as many people being born. And I do just want to note, by the way, Lance will be sending out this presentation, just so you know, you'll have that. And so I believe that it's an existential threat to this industry. If we can't attract people to it, then how do you do the work? And so with the infrastructure bill, I believe that getting work is not going to be as difficult as doing work in the future. And so it becomes critical, how do we attract the right people? How do we attract people to this industry? I believe that marketing is a lever that you can pull. So we've talked about, what are different levers you could pull. The policy lever. I unfortunately cannot affect policy. I cannot force more people to attend a trade school, but marketing is one of the levers that you can pull. And so my goal today is to show you what are companies doing to be ahead of the curve, and hopefully you can join that curve as well. So one of the things that businesses do that are doing really well is they know how to create leverage in their business. So you think about if you're a one-man shop, let's say you're building decks, at some point it becomes physically impossible to work more hours. So you hire somebody. Hiring people, that is a form of leverage, right? The more people that you have, the more work that you can get done, because outworking simply becomes impossible. So we can't have this mentality of just outworking. We're just going to work harder, because that becomes physically impossible. So if you think of your best employee right now, or think of one of the best people on your team right now, what if you could have 5 or 10 more people like them? What if you could create a system to reliably attract those kinds of people to your organization? So instead of you going out and seeking them, they come to seek you, because they're drawn to your values, they're drawn to your culture, they're drawn to who you are as a company. That's what we want to create, and that is leverage. I heard this quote from Alex Hormozzi, and he said, if they aren't making you money and you aren't sleeping with them, don't think about them first thing in the morning. And I'm sure we all have that person in our organization. You're probably thinking of them right now. You're like, man, they're okay, but they're not great. And we need somebody in that role, but it's just, they're not a perfect fit. And that's something that can drag an organization down. It's not what we want. We want those people that are the perfect fit to be in our organization. And so storytelling is a form of leverage. It's a way that you can attract people to your organization. It's a way that can help you stand out. And so when people are thinking of who do I want to work for, they apply with you first, because they know who you are, they know your values, they know your culture. And so storytelling is a form of leverage, but you need to know how to leverage your story. I think of, safety is obviously huge in construction. It's everything, it's paramount. And really safety is, at the core of it, it's risk reduction. So we can't eliminate risk. We can't make risk be absolutely zero. There will always be inherent risk. And so I think of having a recruitment strategy in the same light. Having a recruitment strategy is a form of risk reduction. Because what if you get this job, and I've been there before, where I get a client, it's like, yay, and it's like, oh shit, like how am I going to actually get this done, right? And so we don't want to be in that situation. And so I view recruitment as a risk reduction strategy. I'm going to link to this in the presentation, so Lance is going to send it out. But I think it's important to calculate, how much is not having a recruitment strategy actually costing us in yearly cost. And so I've done some calculations based on Gallup and Archivers. They do a poll of employee engagement and disengagement, and they give you a calculation for how do you actually calculate the cost of disengagement. So you can go through that. I think their numbers are just a little bit inflated. I mean, I don't know, maybe 79% of people are disengaged. I think that's a bit high. So I went ahead and I created my own spreadsheet. So you can put in, what is the average pay of our employee? What do we estimate the average disengagement to be? What is the cost per employee based on that disengagement number of employees, percent of disengaged employees, and then it can give you a cost, because this does have a real cost, right? I was talking to, at the same barbecue, I was talking to Greg Faber, and he said, it's not just about getting people in positions, it's about getting the right people in the right positions. Here's some other questions just to consider. What does delay cost us? What does it cost us to hire a person, to train one person? What is the median age of the people on our team? What do mistakes cost us? What is the attrition rate? Do our employees know our mission statement? Do they know what we are working towards? How would somebody in this role perform if they were to do it perfectly? What is the gap between where they are and where they need to be. So, how are we doing so far? Are we hanging in there? Yes? Good. Very good. Yeah, please.
How many people in this room have their core value of their company? Well, you wrote it, Jeff.
But I think it's a great question, Lance, because even in a room of executives, you'll spend the whole day crafting your mission statement. Then, what is your mission statement? Well, I don't know. I heard this exercise from this business guy, and he was saying, what if you walked around with $10 bills in your pocket and you asked just random people, in your company, what is our mission statement? And for everybody that can say their mission statement, you give them $10. I thought that was kind of fun. So what is a brand? I was talking to a guy I met on LinkedIn, and he said, my favorite thing is to quantify the essence of a brand, and then, what did he say? And then create alignment and just let it permeate throughout the company. And I was kind of looking at him like, what the hell does that mean? And so let me open it up. I don't want to just stand up here and lecture. Does anyone have an idea of what they believe a brand to be? Bueller? Anyone?
I think it's a lot of things, actually. In one sense, it's a visual representation. So if somebody like say on the side of our van, right?
Yeah.
There's an emblem. So even if you don't read the name
Yeah.
as it's driving by, you look at the visual and you're like, oh yeah, that's Vanguard or Favorite. Or
Yeah.
whatever. In your head, you're just automatically familiar.
Good. Yep. Thank you.
It's more than that, but
Yeah.
it's a start.
Yep. So I'll just tell you what I believe it to be. I believe you're right, and I believe it goes even deeper than that. I think it is what people say about you when you are out of the room. I think it is an association of intangible ideas that you want people to associate with you. In short, it's reputation. So what is your reputation? So when somebody says, oh, this person has a personal brand, it means they have a reputation. It means your company has a reputation. So people associate things with you, and they say things about you when you're out of the room. And you don't get to control your brand, but you do get to influence your brand, because you don't get to control what people say about you, but you do get to influence what people say about you. It's your values, it's your beliefs, it's your mission that all affect what people perceive your brand to be. And I also believe that branding is a continuation of a logical trend. So word of mouth, by far, it is the best marketing, right? Anybody that tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something, because it's just so powerful, right? If I'm working at a company, and I tell my superior, you got to hire my friend. He's a great employee, and I'm a great employee. Like it's just that's how it's done. That's going to be the best way. But what marketing and branding has done in the online age, it has enabled us to create word of mouth at scale. So word of mouth, traditional word of mouth, is one-to-one communication. And I believe that branding enables us to have word of mouth at scale. I also believe that we can, I created this way to think about this, what I call the word of mouth flywheel. So a flywheel is something that you start and then it continues based on its own momentum. So I believe that when we create marketing and branding content, it then creates a positive brand perception, or people judge our reputation to be favorable. That creates awareness and interest in what we're doing. That leads to easier hiring. Easier hiring then leads to more marketing content that we can then create, and we create and maintain that flywheel. Branding also compounds over time. So people here familiar with compound interest? Yes. Very good. Warren Buffett called it the eighth wonder of the world, and I believe that branding is similar. So just as reputation grows over time, right, you can ruin it in a second, but reputation grows over time. So if somebody's been in an industry for 20 years, they have a good reputation, they've built that over time, and so it compounds and it builds upon itself. And I believe branding is the same way. So you start out and it's like, man, is this really even, is this doing anything? And then over time, you start to see that it builds and builds and builds upon itself. What can and cannot be measured? Does anyone here love their spouse? David, how much do you love your spouse?
I love questions. This much. Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, and so exactly. It's how do you quantify that? How do you measure that, right? I do have a story about how I I was able to tell my spouse did not love me in the moment very much. I was coming back from Moab. I'd been mountain biking with my friend John. We were coming back after 6 days of mountain biking in Moab, and I have this ride that I do on Wednesday nights. So tonight at 5:30, I'll be riding my mountain bike. Anyway, I called Allison. I was like, Allison, I know I've been gone for 6 days, but I think our timing is going to line up perfectly, so I could go from riding in Moab for 6 days and ride with the Wednesday night crew. Like, how cool is that? She's like, you've been gone for 6 days and you want to go mountain biking again and not even see me? I was like, yeah, isn't that great? And she ended the call by saying, you do you, bro. And John turns to me and he goes, you do you, bro? What does that even mean? And I said, John, it means she's not very happy with me. And so we can sometimes measure how much our spouse loves us.
Did you go mountain biking or not?
I did. It was not a good call.
Not good branding.
Not good branding. No, my personal reputation was compromised. And so some things that are impossible to measure, but of course they matter, right? Culture matters, trust matters, attitude matters, collaboration matters. How do you measure those things? Those are hard to measure. But some things that we can measure engagement online. We can measure the amount of applications we are getting and the interest in our company. We can measure what people are saying about us and coming up to us and saying, man, I really love what WRS is up to. That's really, you guys are really killing it, right? Those things are things that we can measure, and we can actually say, okay, this whole branding thing, it sounds hard. You know how you crack an egg in the pan and you get a little tiny piece of shell in there and you're trying to grab it and the yolk is preventing you from grabbing it? That's sometimes how branding can feel, right? It feels kind of squishy. But branding can be measured. What is brand strategy? So strategy is a fancy way of saying how you allocate resources which are limited against unlimited options. That's all that strategy is. So strategy, at the heart of it, it is prioritizing. It's saying what is going to get us the most bang for our buck. That's all that strategy is. So when people talk about brand strategy, they're trying to sound self-important. That's all they mean. So we want to put a little bit of effort in and get a lot of results. We don't want to put a lot of effort in and get a little bit of results. So why does story work so well? I want to talk just briefly about the structure of the brain. So the reptilian brain, and Jesse, hello, Jesse's going to take a few pictures for us. You don't have to smile, but I do. So the reptilian brain, that's responsible for our breathing, our blinking, our heart beating, right? Stuff where we don't have any conscious control over. The limbic brain, that has to do with emotions and how we make decisions. So decisions and emotions, that's centered in the limbic brain. The neocortex, that's how we process data, and that is where language comes from. So, did anyone notice anything really interesting about what we've just covered? What I find to be go ahead, Lance.
They all come together?
They do. What is interesting to me about this is that the limbic brain is where we make decisions, and that's where emotions are housed. But the neocortex, that's where language is. And so has anyone ever felt, they had a gut decision about something, or they decided to do something because it felt right, or they decided not to do something because it felt right? Right? When you think about, why do you love your spouse? David, I'm not gonna pick on you again, but you think about why do you love your spouse? It's like, Allison, she's funny, she's nice, she's thoughtful. It's like, well, aren't there a lot of other women that are nice and funny and thoughtful? Well, yeah. What is it about her? It's like, well, I don't know. Because our emotional center, limbic brain, has no capacity for language. We can't put words to it because that's not where we make decisions is not where we make language. And so if we want to reach people, we want to reach them emotionally. So people make decisions with emotion and then they back it up later with logic. Is anybody familiar with the golden circle, Simon Sinek's golden circle? Thank you. Very good. We see a few head nods. So he talks about, and you can read his book, I'll link to it in the presentation, but he talks about how most organizations can say what we do. Fewer, can say how they do it, and very few can say why they do it. But people are drawn to the why behind what you do. I was talking with WRS, you're a great example, Ezra, you're sitting right there. And they were saying, is it 47 out of the 57 people in leadership came within the company?
Yes.
And so to me, that is, I'm not trying to speak for you, but that is such a powerful why behind what they do, right? WRS is trying to grow leaders. That's what they do, right? That's so much more powerful than saying, oh yeah, do some asphalt paving. well, nobody cares about asphalt paving, but boy, they sure do care about, we're growing leaders. We believe in our people, we believe in our ability to develop them, and we want people to reach, the heights of what they can do. We want people to be able to reach their potential at our company. That is a lot more powerful than saying, yeah, we pave asphalt. That's how they happen to do it, but that's not why they do what they do. This is another way to think about storytelling. Anybody familiar with StoryBrand? So StoryBrand marketing, very good. So the way that Donald Miller talks about it, he says there's a character. The character has a problem and meets a guide who gives them a plan, calls them to action that either ends in success and that helps them to avoid failure. So if we think about Luke Skywalker, he is a character. He has a problem. He's stuck with his aunt and uncle. Is it on Tatooine? Thank you. He meets a guide, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who gives him a plan. You must learn the ways of the Force, and calls them to action. You must become a Jedi Knight, and either you will defeat the dark side or you will not. And so there's a hero in the story and there's a guide in the story. Now, when we're thinking about our own marketing, are we the hero of the story or are we the guide in the story? Thank you. Very good. Yes. Thank you, Matt. A lot of people think, oh, we're the hero of the story. We've won all these awards, and we've, 2019 and 2020 and 2021 and 2022, No, it's not about you. It's about them. You're the guide in the story. You're saying, here's how I'm going to help you as a person develop. Here's how I'm going to grow you into all you can be. Here's how I'm going to take your talents and bring it to the next level. And so that's what we want to be in this case, in our employee story. We want to be the guide. We don't want to be the hero of the story. We want them to be the hero of the story. Because traditionally the hero is always weak, right? You think of Katniss in the Hunger Games, right? She's weak. She needs Haymitch to help her and train her. Luke Skywalker is weak. He needs somebody to help him. And so I'm not saying people are weak, but I'm saying that people need to be developed by a guide that's been there, that's been through it, that knows what they're doing and can warn them about things that may come up. Now I want to tell you a story about standing out. So Cornerstone Construction, they are down in Seattle. They're one of my clients. And I was talking to them about one of their jobs. And they were saying, we were up against, I think it was Skanska and another company. So these huge companies, right? It was for a school, for Lake Stevens High School. And they go into the meeting for their very final conversation. There's about 10 of them. And they bought these plastic Viking hats on Amazon. And they all walked in, they put on their Viking hats, and they had their purple on, because that was the school colors, right? And that's how they go into the final meeting. And they end up winning the project, an $87 million project. And this could be kind of a cool story if we don't know the follow-up, but thankfully we do. So Steve Horsley, he's really he's one of those people, it's like, they're going to have to drag me out of here, right? And so he has a lot to do with hiring, and he ended up going on a fishing trip with one of the people that made the decision in this build, and he said, I got to ask, the wearing the Viking helmets, did that have anything to do with your decision? And he goes, oh, 100%. All three of you were completely qualified to do the job, but that for us just pushed over the edge. And so branding and marketing, when you're putting yourself out there, there's risk involved, right? They could have been rejected. They could have been laughed out of the room. They could have been like, what are you doing wearing these Viking hats? This is an $87 million decision we're going to make, and you're wearing these silly Viking hats? So doing branding, you put yourself out there. There is always the risk that it doesn't go as you planned. But it can also lead to results like this one, right? Almost $100 million just from wearing some Viking hats and being willing to stand out. There's a shift happening that I want to talk about. It's called what I call the tell me, show me shift. I think previous generations, they said, tell me, right? Tell me the information. I don't know if it's just because the world was less complicated back then. I wasn't even born in the 80s, but I have this nostalgia for the 80s, even though I didn't even live it. It just seems like a better time. Was it a better time?
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. That's what people tell me. So I think people are just more straightforward, maybe more truthful back then. And this generation, my generation, generation below me, we're just more skeptical. And so we're saying, don't tell me that there are opportunities for advancement. Show me that there are. Don't tell me it's a good work environment. Show me. Up the road at Me Mexico, there are 1,794 reviews with 4.5 stars. I can look it up on my phone. I can go to Amazon right now, and there's 2,139 reviews for sticky notes, which is a $9.99 purchase. But for a place where I may spend 5 to 10, 20 years of my career, I'm going to spend 40 to 60 hours a week. What's the work environment like? I don't know. What's the culture like? I don't know. Are there opportunities for advancement? I'm not sure. How's my management team? I don't know. And so we're making a mistake by not showing people, here is what you can expect. Because in every other area of our life, we have so much information, right? Who needs 22,000 reviews for sticky notes? But we don't know what it's like to spend 40 to 60 hours a week, potentially more time than we even spend with our own family. So we need to be showing people, here is what it's like to work for us. How will you reach the next generation of talent? I say you need to be in the room and not the lobby. So not being online, not having an online presence and engaging in marketing, it's kind of like, let's say there's a networking event here. There's 100 people in the room, and you're standing out there in the lobby, and you're like, boy, I wonder if anybody's going to walk up and talk to me. Like, oh, hey, there's somebody walking into that room. But then you stand outside the room the whole time, and you don't actually go into the networking event. That's what not showing up online is like, because that is where the conversations are happening. And so if I'm to sum it up, it's reach people where they are, where they're having those conversations, where they're spending that time, and make it look cool. This is a cool industry, right? You're talking about huge cranes. You're talking about 90,000-pound bulldozers that are moving the earth, right? This is a really cool industry, but it's when you don't market it and you don't talk about it, how am I supposed to know that it's a cool industry, right? Because I don't see it. I want to see it. Does anyone have kids in this room? Do they spend time online? So we need to show up where people are at. So what does the next generation want? It's a great question. Of course they want pay, but when you look up surveys of what people really want and they're looking for in a workplace, pay is typically 6th on the list, 5th or 6th on the list. Pay, of course. Benefits, of course, right? That's kind of the bare minimum. But what people really want is they want opportunities to learn and grow. They want to know the quality of their manager. They want to know the quality of the management, interest in the type of work, opportunities for advancement. Will they have growth, mentorship? What's the culture like? And so when we are investing in our marketing and branding, we are showing people, here is what it is like. We're not just telling them. Josh Burson, he's a labor researcher, and he says we are entering into a secular labor shortage. And that has nothing to do with religion or not religion. I had to look this up because I was not sure what secular meant in this context, but he said it's of or relating to a long term of indefinite duration. So this labor shortage, it's not going to just solve itself by itself magically, right? It's going to continue. It's going to be indefinite because largely due to population growth or non-growth. And he makes the point that people are the only appreciating asset on your balance sheet. Lastly, there are some intangibles. So perception matters. So you're thinking, okay, is somebody really reading every single post that we're posting on Instagram or Facebook on our website? Realistically, no, they're not. But when they see, wow, there's a lot of posts about their employees, and I'm seeing profiles of each of them and their experience there, and that perception matters, right? Would a company that is not investing in their employees, would they really go to all this effort to market themselves and to show their culture? Probably not. And so my perception is going to be, wow, this is probably a really great place to work if I'm seeing all of this marketing happening. Does anyone know who these two blokes are here?
Freud's one of them.
Yes, Freud's one of them.
And Bill Nye.
Close. So we have Freud here on our right-hand side, and we have Viktor Frankl on our left-hand side. Is anyone familiar with Viktor Frankl? So Viktor Frankl, he studied under Freud. He is a Holocaust survivor, and his theory, well, first we'll start out with Freud. So Freud, his theory is that we are driven by pleasure, right? We are driven by the pursuit of pleasure. Has anyone gotten anything recently that they wanted? Matthew, could you enlighten us? What did you get that you wanted?
Yeah, I got a new position and a new bonus.
Good. Tell us, actually, give me a material example. Is there anything that you purchased recently, just so I can prove my point?
No.
Okay, Matthew cannot help us. Is there anybody else that can help us?
Well, like my 16-year-old, he'll look online for something that he wants. It can be like
Yeah.
I had a keyboard for my computer, and I'm like, okay, great, how big that? And then the next week will be like, I really want this, whatever. And then it'll be like, I really want this next thing. And I'm like, how are you gonna save up to buy that big thing if you keep spending all your money on the little things, right?
Yeah.
But it's just that like fleeting moment of satisfaction until he's looking for the next thing.
Thank you. That is exactly the example I was looking for. So once we get what we want, we just want another thing, right? Once I get the, the 2-bedroom house, it's like, well, I really want a 3-bedroom house, and now it only has 1 bathroom, and I want 2 bathrooms, or now I want the keyboard, and now see you later, Jesse. And now I want, whatever else I want. And so you continue to want, right? It's not like once we get what we want, we're done wanting. So Viktor Frankl, he says, people are not driven by pleasure. In fact, they're driven by meaning. And that is what motivates and drives people.
Can you give an example of that?
Yeah, so I'll give the quote and then I'll give an example. So, what man actually needs is not a tensionless state, but rather a striving and struggling for some goal worthy of him. And so, when I talk about meaning, maybe it is starting a new role where you can become all you were meant to be, or to fulfill your potential, or to find out, because I think people wonder, what am I capable of? And to join an organization, to join a role, to find out, what am I capable of? I think that is what gives people meaning, to devote themselves to a worthy cause, rather than the pursuit of more, more, more. I think that is where you can find true meaning, true pleasure, is in the pursuit of a worthy cause. Here's an example.
I
Yeah.
build models, and it's no matter how much I actually want the model.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I really wanted this one. It's awesome.
Yeah.
The minute I put the last piece on, it's like, what's the next model?
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost instantly just
Yeah.
shove it aside to
Yep.
keep working on it.
Yeah, precisely. So here's an example. I just want to give some examples of companies that I see doing a good job of this. Because what does it actually look like, right? We've talked a lot about theory. What does it actually look like in practice? So here's an example from WRS. They post pictures like this of their employees, and then they will share some stories about them and their experience working at the company. And then Liz, who is responsible for their marketing, she sent me this application that came in. This was on the 9th of October. So this person said, my draw to WRS above anywhere else currently comes from what I read about the company and its values. Goes on to say, I would love the opportunity to take my next step with a team who believes in these things as well. So this is not just theoretical. This is real people that are going to be seeing who you are online, how you carry yourself, what your values are, and they're going to be drawn to you. So who would you want to work for? Would you want to work for, man, they're profiling all their employees, they're sharing their stories, these people are getting to share their experience about what it's like to work for. Would I want to work for this company, or would I want to work for, I just picked a company that is not in our area, Oregon Trail Asphalt, right? They have no online presence. They don't even have a careers page. It's like, who would I want to work for? Would I be drawn to this company, or would I be drawn to this company? No brainer, right? Faber Construction, I'll link to this video. But one of the things that Rick Faber, the founder, he ends the video by saying, there's plenty of opportunity to work, and there is limited opportunity to spend time seeing your kids grow up. If I'm some project manager down in Seattle, and I'm regularly working 60 hours a week, I'm commuting an hour and a half to the job site each day, and I hear that line from Rick Faber, it's like, dang, that's a company I want to work for, right? Here's another example from Cornerstone General Contractors. This is a video that we helped them with. So Dave Flynn, he talks about how craftsmanship is not a switch you can turn on and turn off. It's who you are. Carrie, who is one of the carpenters, she says, being able to build something with your own hands and see other people see it and say, wow, that's amazing. I want to hear that, and I want to know I've done it properly 100%. Gerard then talks about there's not a whole lot of micromanaging from up above, which is a good thing. It promotes creativity, but you have to be accountable for yourself. You take away what you put in because of that. So if I'm somebody that's been at a company where they're really micromanaging me, they're looking over my shoulder, and I hear what Gerard has to say, it's like, man, that's a company I'd want to work for. One more example from Lakeside. They're starting to do more company, profiles of their companies, short videos, people talking about what their experience has been like. I would be drawn to that. So I want to visualize what we've talked about today, because sometimes visualization can help me. This is kind of how I learn. So we've talked about, figuring out mission, vision, and values of your company, then that informs your brand and informs your reputation. Brand is reputation, as we talked about. Then that informs your marketing, which I think marketing is just another word for storytelling. That then informs what you create. So whether it's photo, video, written word, and then distribution. So whether it's website, social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, internal marketing, maybe it's at career fairs, maybe you say, here, scan this QR code. We have a video about what our company's all about. Okay, so how are we doing on time, Lance? Great, very good. So how do you actually implement this? So I told you we'd have a step-by-step plan of how do we implement. We are here. We have arrived. So first of all, I think it's critical to say, if you undertake an effort like this, it has to be authentic. It cannot be, we don't have a great culture. It's kind of toxic. People just aren't really happy here. But we need to hire people, so we're gonna try to manufacture this.
How is it that you truly measure that? What's your temperature of the culture?
Yeah, I think, who here has been a part of a healthy culture in their workplace? Who has been a part of an unhealthy culture? So I think it's one of those things, Lance, where is there a measure for it? Maybe it does exist. But I think it's another one of those things that is hard to measure, but you can feel it when you're part of a healthy culture, and you can feel it when you're not a part of a healthy culture.
I guess the reason I ask
Yeah.
that, because if the person who's in charge of
Yeah.
leading this is tone deaf, you're screwed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but, so I guess I guess I'm asking, is there a way that a measure can be created, or some system to help evaluate?
I'm sure there is. I have no idea what it would be. But let me think on that, and I'll get back to you on that one. Because I agree with you. I think, yeah, because, that's my next point, is that buy-in is critical. Yeah.
So, I guess what my measure has been
Yeah, please.
in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
We made I decided it was time to make a culture shift
Mm-hmm.
in 2019.
Yeah.
The measure of it was how many people left
Mm.
once I put this into place,
Yeah.
and how long it's taken to get to the point now to where I can see the difference
Yeah.
in my crews
Yeah.
and the people that are now working there. You showed that with the average age.
Yeah.
For concrete, it was, I don't know, it was like 42 or
Yeah.
something. Or,
Yeah.
we're now in that, I think, 34 to 35 range.
Yeah.
But I think that was what I saw over the last 4 years. That's just from my experience.
Yeah. Thank you.
Do a lot of, if I can, do a lot of people look at their retention rates annually and what their trends are? Yeah.
There's also like employee engagement surveys or different ways to stay interviews, exit
Mhm.
interviews. I think retention turnover rates is a good way to kind of see what you're trending towards, and if you can get information from other companies too on what's typical in the construction industry, that can usually give you a pretty
Yeah.
good, just from an HR
Thank you.
kind of looking at it.
Net
Yeah.
Promoter Score is another one that companies are starting to use even internally. And, just shifting the way the survey is conducted, but using the Net Promoter aspect of, how many people do you recommend, would you recommend a family member work here?
Hmm.
Would you bring a friend in, things of that nature. And that's something that can be measured quarterly or semi-annually. And it's the trend that counts, right? It's more of the trend,
Hmm.
where it's headed, as opposed to just what that one score might be.
Yeah, because I think you could have a company with a toxic, I've worked for some.
Yeah.
Have a toxic
Right.
work environment, have great retention,
Okay.
but all those people are not the kind of people you want to be working with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're not the same.
Yeah.
You always retain the people you don't want.
Exactly.
So, thank you for this discussion. This is very helpful. So yeah, I think it has to come from an authentic place, and there has to be buy-in. So why are we doing this? Because that's what people are going to ask. So there has to be buy-in from the top, from leadership. Has to say this is something that we are going to do. This is important that we do this. I think if there is not buy-in from leadership, I don't think it can happen. There will be hesitancy due to, we've never done this before, this is different, our industry doesn't really do this. What if this doesn't work? We're humble. That's one of the things that's drawn me to this industry is people are humble, right? We don't want to brag about ourselves. And I'd encourage you to think about it. You're not bragging about yourselves. Don't do that. Brag about your people. Brag about your people. I think this is where we are as far as the trend, because I'm seeing more and more of it. I'm seeing it locally. I'm seeing it nationally. Construction companies starting to market themselves. And I think we are here. So this is kind of the curve of adoption of any kind of technology, but I think it applies to this as well. So you think about the iPhone, right? I remember David, this guy that I knew when I was, back, oh gosh, when was that? I think it was in high school, and he had the first iPhone I'd ever seen. It was like, whoa, right? This guy's probably spent, however many hundreds of dollars on this iPhone. Now everybody has an iPhone. And so we think about this curve. I think this is where we are in this curve of early adopters and early majority. And I think the more benefit you'll see, the earlier you start, the more benefit you'll see from something like this, because not everybody's going to be doing it. Second, who is going to own this? So I'm going to be going to Thanksgiving. This is on my dad's side. My crazy uncle is thankfully on my mom's side. And when I go to Thanksgiving dinner, I don't know about you all, but I do my mashed potatoes, and I do my turkey, and then I do my, my stuffing, thank you. And then eventually the plate gets full, and then you start the second layer, right? You start stacking stuff on top of the plate. And so if you hand this off to somebody that already has a full plate, that's how they're going to feel. They're going to be like, why are you putting a second layer of stuff on my plate? Because I simply already have a full plate. And so you have to think about, if this is something you want to pursue for your company, who is going to own this? Whose job is this going to be? Because you can't hand it to somebody that already has a full and overflowing plate. So yeah, you may need to hire somebody to do this if you want to execute well. A third, develop a brand guide. So this is all the elements of what a brand guide would have, but basically it is a document that talks about who are we, what do we stand for, what are our values, and then how do we carry that out? How do we share that with people? I don't want to spend too much time on this, just because we have limited time together, but you can look up examples of a brand guide, or we can talk about it at some point. Fourth is to create a marketing plan. So what kind of marketing content are we going to create? Where will it be distributed? What is the schedule? How often? What is the medium? Is it photo? Is it video? Is it written? And then a marathon mentality. Yeah, sorry, Lance.
Go back to the,
Yeah.
to the, the medium. Let's, here in Whatcom County, let's be honest, there's one medium, and that's, the internet. Because it's not realistic, I think, in a lot of other media markets, because it's expensive. I'm kind of curious what other folks kind of feel about that. Cost prohibitive, yeah.
We just now decided to hit alternative radio options, like not the mainstream stuff, but kind of thinking outside of what the normal TV, radio stuff is, to see if we can branch out of the internet a little bit. I know that for recruiting though, we do hit a lot of trade show or career fairs and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So we do outreach that way.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have two thoughts on that. So yeah, if you go to a career fair, then maybe you have, I've always told people, have a QR code in there that says, do you want to see what it's like to work for us? And then that goes to a culture video. Or, what's it like to be a PM here? And you have a video that talks about what it's like to be a PM here. The other,
one thing I got to
Yeah.
say, like, if you look at, so like TikTok trends,
yeah,
the average watch time of Gen Z is 6 to 8 seconds.
Yeah.
So how can you refine like a mission statement in 6 to 8 seconds? Because it's about all the time you got on the internet to hold their attention to something.
So it depends on what they're going there for. So I think typically people are going to TikTok for entertainment, right?
Well, but that's not just TikTok. That's just
Yeah.
a common trend. Like even if you look at YouTube videos, once you get under people 30, and you look at like watch times, that younger generation that's in their 20s, which is where most of us are trying to recruit from. We
Yeah.
try to bring some young people in.
Yeah.
We'll only pay attention for about 6 seconds. So, I mean, it's almost impossible to at least video-wise keep to cram your story in 6 seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it to a goldfish and be a little more successful.
Yeah. And so that's why creating a combination of long form and short form content is important. Because there's actually trends that show that people are watching more long-form content. And so it depends on what you're saying, right? Is it compelling enough to keep somebody's attention for longer?
If you can incorporate some really cool dance moves.
Yes, yes.
You're probably,
Is that
probably
what
cool.
You know, though, to your point, if in that first 3 or 4 seconds, and you're looking for a job or thinking about changing jobs, and Rick Faber shows up and says, one of the most important things for us is to make sure our family's at home each night. I might watch a little bit longer. And now the trailer takes me into some visuals and things like that.
I agree
Isn't
with
that
that.
a big part of the punch?
Yeah.
I agree that if you're recruiting people 30 and above, but if you tell an 18 or 19-year-old like about your family,
Yeah.
they're like, whatever, you know.
Well, that catchphrase probably needs to be more geared
Yeah.
towards them.
I think that's what our issue is. I mean, we've been going to the high schools,
Yeah.
maybe those career days.
Yeah.
And even just talking to kids, it's like, you gotta be so fast. to,
Yeah.
Like, so we do contests like Gaston, the boom of the crane.
Yeah.
And it's, you'll catch a few
Yeah.
for more than a second, but
Yeah.
most of the time they're just like, well, it's free, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's
so
that.
That's the problem, is trying to figure out how do we get the attention long enough?
Yeah.
Because there's, you know, like concrete, there's not a lot you're gonna say to an 18-year-old other than, hey, it's a good trade. You know, over time you're gonna make good money.
Yeah.
There's benefits.
Do you wanna hire someone that has a 6-second attention span, Dina?
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately, anybody under 30.
yeah.
They're not all that way, come on now.
Well, good
Well, a
point.
lot.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed, is trying to capture their attention long enough to even tell them what you're about.
Yeah.
You know, like what we do.
Yeah, and that just speaks to the importance of who are you marketing towards?
Out at Linden, and they were, high school kids?
Yes, they were.
And they were very focused and listened to what they were interested. We had kids that would sit at our booth for 20 minutes just looking, and so it's a matter of how you go about approaching them.
And I think, you know, in that regard, Ray, the reason, and I talked to many of the juniors and seniors that were out there, is, first of all, it was a hands-on interactive, and
Yep.
there's many people that are in this room that were a part of that event, so thank you. But the cool thing was, I'm gonna tell a real quick story, is is not to underestimate the engagement. I was walking back in, and I had 3 teenage girls walking back in. I introduced myself, said I was the organizer of the event. Were they enjoying it? They said, absolutely, it was super cool, all the hands-on stuff. And then I asked one lady, I said, what can we do to make it better? First girl's response, you know what it was to me? There's no drywallers here. A 17-year-old girl. And I was like, oh, okay, how many people would expect that answer?
No.
No. Okay, and then the next girl mentioned, there's no, the most important thing in a house, there's no toilet, no plumbing. And I was like really blown away, but she was dead right. But and I think that for me is not to underestimate what they're also understanding, and so I think, getting them engaged, and I think that's the thing is we've got to find the different methods to get out to them that's existential as opposed to, talking to them. One kid said, I like this event because there's not an old guy telling me what I need to do. Seriously, that was literally the quote he gave.
Yeah, well, I think it speaks volumes to the community that Linden has in itself, like there's a lot more hardworking.
This was a
Well, this was all
event.
over
I
county.
mean, yeah, multi.
Well, yeah, but I mean, in that area, there's a lot more of those type of
No, that is.
workers that have a value of that.
My only question to that would be then, but how did that translate into, like contractors getting young workers, following that?
We don't know yet. It was just last May.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to it's one of those things you gotta continue to
reinforce
do to
that's
make
an
it grow.
opportunity.
And so we're gonna do it next year, and we're gonna keep doing it because there's nobody, coming up, we're gonna run out of, we're in construction, we're gonna run out of people that even wanna join the trade, we're a union company, so the key is getting the folks to be interested in joining the trades So they learn the skills, because I don't want an 18-year-old. I want people that have skills to come to work for us. And I think if you're not doing the career fair, you should do it. WRS was there, and a lot of people, and those kids loved it because they got to see what we do. They were building stuff. They were operating excavators and welding, and they loved it. So video may not be the only tool.
And the most
that-
popular event was the guys that are doing concrete.
Yeah, they were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's,
Yeah,
I would
you did a forum
join the
there.
fair.
Sorry to hijack that.
I was looking for audience engagements. This is good.
Well, but also like, I just did 2 career fairs at 2 different schools yesterday, and if you ask the kids what they wanna do when they grow up or graduate from high school, 80% of them have no clue what they wanna
Yeah.
do. But if you start talking to them about money and how they could be able to support themselves and the amount of time that it takes for them to earn, you know, $80,000 to $100,000, then they engage. I mean, really quick. If you say you can earn your plumbing journeyman's license in 4 or 5 years and you'll be making this much money, they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, no debt, you don't have to go to school. So that's what they trigger on money for sure, and not having it be a 20-year commitment to get there.
Yeah, it's about storytelling, right? It's like, boy, I hadn't heard that story before.
Part of the story is how many people know what the percentage of kids that graduate high school go to college this past June?
Pretty low.
30% go to college. What's the other 70% do?
Living at their parents' house.
They're watching TikTok videos for 6 seconds.
So one thing I got, so,
Number one answer we got at the fair was what they wanted to do, and they said, oh, I want to do social media. So, what do you want to do that's not going to be social media, because it's such a small percent to make a living doing that?
so what I did is I pulled social media into my company, and that's why he's sitting here. Because there's so many different, I think that's where we miss out too.
Concrete too.
Yeah, he finished it, but it's like, I'm trying to give him a lot of options in the company. There's a
Yeah.
lot of different things that people can do. I don't think we get that message out either.
Yeah.
Well enough of all the positions available,
Right.
even at a small concrete company.
Right.
The big thing that we find, so how many people here, what's the first thing you think of when I say pour concrete?
Sore back.
Hard work.
Okay, so how do you change that perception? Because I was talking to some of his friends, and all that they come up with is, no matter how good the pay is, their thing is, no, that's too hard work. I'm
Yeah.
not doing that.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go, they could start out at a grocery store
Yeah.
for what we're paying as a starting wage,
Yeah.
even though they can progress over 4 years and double their pay.
Yeah.
They don't, the money doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So how do you change that perception?
Storytelling. Yeah. Because there is a perception
But
of
it is hard work.
yes. Yes.
So, I mean, how do you, that's the part that's, I guess, we're struggling with is
Yeah. Yeah.
you can only tell so many stories, and then it's
Right.
like, then they come in and go, well, yeah, this is too hard.
It doesn't match the story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I can say it's hard work, but then it's just like,
Yeah.
who's gonna come in?
Yep. Yep. The next thing I want to just touch on briefly is a marathon mentality. As we've talked about, this is not something, you don't go to a career fair once and say, okay, we did it, right? You don't throw up one post on social media, okay, we've done our marketing. It's continuing to put in the effort. It's playing the long game. You know, in my business, that's the game I want to play. I want to play the long game. I want to be in it for the long haul. And so when we're thinking about our marketing, we're thinking about our branding, we have to be in it for the long game and not just the short-term wins. And then lastly, measure and adjust. So see what is working, what is not working, what kind of feedback are we getting, and then adjust from there. Lastly, what does your life look like in a year? You know, if we're sitting here a year from now, maybe I'm up here, maybe I'm in the audience, but if we're sitting here a year from now, what does your life look like? Have you taken action on this? Because some of the people in this room will take action on this. Some of the people in this room already are taking action on this, and their businesses are looking different as a result. And so what could you accomplish with a great team behind you? I think it's incredibly important to think about how is our company, how are our businesses being perceived? Final thoughts. You spent how many years in your business? You spent how many years in your role? And you're saying you don't want to have a hand in how it's perceived. And I think it couldn't be more important to have a hand in how things are perceived, how you are seen, how people view you, and the kind of message that you're spreading. Is there anything worth doing that is easy? Not really. The things that are worth doing are hard. They take effort. And then lastly, once you get going, it becomes easier. Just like when you are accelerating on the freeway, going to take a lot of fuel to get going. Once you get to cruising altitude, cruising speed, it becomes a lot easier. And so it can seem daunting at first when you think about it, but once you get going, it gets easier with time. There's a cheesy picture of me pointing to where you can get in touch with me if you'd like to chat about anything marketing or branding related. I would love that. And then we are on the Q&A.